Okay, be honest. How many of you have laid awake at night stressing over a decision? Like you've thought about every single outcome, but you're still just stuck with the what ifs.
Yeah, or maybe you've questioned something you've always believed, and then you end up in this spiral of doubt.
Well, today we're going to dive into the world of philosophy and ethics, but don't worry, it's not going to be boring.
No lectures here. We're going to give you some tools and frameworks you can actually use so you can deal with tough decisions and quiet those thoughts, and maybe even sleep a little better.
That's right. Actionable advice, not just theory. By the end of this deep dive, you'll be ready to handle anything from daily dilemmas to the...
Oh, you might be surprised how much you already know about this. Philosophy is everywhere, even if we don't realize it.
Exactly. So before we really get going, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Terry, and I'm your guide to this world of ideas.
And I'm Sheri, and I'm here to help you see the connections and the bigger picture. Together, we're going to look at some of the biggest questions humans have pondered for centuries.
Now, some of you might be thinking philosophy. Isn't that just for, academics? But philosophy is about so much more than that.
It's about how we think, why we believe what we believe, and how to make decisions that fit with our values. It's about living intentionally.
And honestly, who doesn't want a little more intention and a lot less stress?
Yeah, it's about being ready to deal with all the complexities of being human. From relationships to work dilemmas, philosophy gives us a way to make sense of it all.
In fact, one of the things we're looking at today talks about how philosophy can actually help us make better ethical choices at work.
Right. It shows how understanding different ethical frameworks can guide us through tough situations where there's no easy right or wrong answer.
Like having a roadmap for those ethical gray areas.
Exactly. And that's just one example of how philosophy can have a real impact on our lives.
So I know what you're thinking. Philosophy? That sounds kind of heavy, right?
Not at all. We promise to keep things interesting and even a little funny.
Think of it like a mental workout. Left foot, more aha moments.
And if things ever get too complicated, we'll break it down into easy pieces.
Let's start with something super famous in philosophy. The trolley problem. Have you heard of it? Is where there's a runaway trolley and it's about to hit 5 people, but you can switch it to another track, but it will hit 1 person there. Do you pull a lever?
It seems simple, but it's started so many debates, and it tells us a lot about how people approach moral decisions.
You have to deal with big concepts like consequentialism and deontology.
Now, I know those words sound intimidating, but let me explain. Consequentialism says that it's the outcome that matters most.
Yeah.
So in the trolley problem, a consequentialist would say saving 5 lives is better, even if 1 person has to be sacrificed.
So it's all about doing the most good.
Exactly. Deontology, though, focuses on morals and duties. So a deontologist would say it's wrong to intentionally hurt someone, even to save more lives.
It would be like, don't touch the lever.
Yeah, they'd say following moral rules is most important no matter the outcome.
But here's the thing. This isn't just some thought experiment. It shows up in real life when we have to make tough choices.
Like in healthcare, where resources are limited, or public policy, where we have to decide how to allocate things. Like, do we help those who are most likely to benefit, even if others miss out?
And self-driving cars. How should they be programmed to react in accidents they can't avoid? Do they protect the passengers, even if it means harming people outside the car?
Real-world trolley problems. And even though philosophy won't give us all the answers, it gives us a way to think about these issues more deeply.
It helps us look at our own ideas about right and wrong, and to see different points of view.
And speaking of different points of view, let's talk about moral versus moral objectivism.
Ooh, this is a good one.
It is. Moral relativism says there's no one right answer to moral questions. What's right or wrong depends on things like culture, personal beliefs, and individual situations.
Like saying, what's right for you might not be right for me, and that's okay.
Right, but then how do we judge actions that seem truly wrong, like genocide or slavery?
Yeah, if everything is relative, wouldn't it be impossible to say any action is truly wrong?
That's one of the big arguments against moral relativism. It seems like it makes it hard to hold anyone responsible for anything, even terrible things.
Then we have moral objectivism, which says that there are universal moral truths for everyone.
It's the idea that some actions are just plain right or wrong no matter what.
So like, murder is always wrong, no matter what.
Exactly. But then who decides what those universal truths are?
Good point. That's one of the problems with moral objectivism. If there are absolute moral rules, who gets to make them, and how do we avoid forcing them on people who disagree?
It's tough. No easy answers. But just thinking about these different perspectives helps us figure out our own moral compass and why we believe what we believe.
So we've got all these big ideas: consequentialism, deontology, moral relativism, moral objectivism. How do we actually use them in our lives?
You're right. Philosophy isn't just for textbooks or debates. It's about living a more thoughtful and intentional life.
So how do we take these ideas and apply them to our everyday decisions?
One of the best things philosophy teaches us is to question what we assume is true.
You mean like, instead of just believing what we've always been told, we should ask ourselves, why do I believe this? Is it actually true, or is it just what I was raised with?
Exactly. When we question our assumptions, we see our own biases and the things that shape how we think, and that helps us make better decisions.
Like shining a light on those hidden beliefs that we just take for granted.
Yes, and that can be uncomfortable sometimes. It might make us question things we feel strongly about and face some hard truths about ourselves.
But isn't that what makes life interesting?
Absolutely. It's all about learning and growing and realizing that there's always more to learn.
So questioning what we assume is true, that's a good tool. What else can we do to make philosophy practical?
Another big one is empathy.
You mean trying to understand other people's points of view, even if they're different from ours?
Exactly. Empathy lets us see the world through someone else's eyes.
Which could be hard, especially when we disagree with someone a lot.
It is hard, but it's so important for living ethically and for connecting with other people. When we practice empathy, we understand things better and make decisions that are kinder and fairer.
It's about seeing that there are always different perspectives.
Yeah, even when we're sure we're right, there might be other things we haven't thought about.
So we've got questioning our assumptions and practicing empathy. What else?
Try doing little thought experiments in your daily life.
Like what? Give us an example.
One I like is the universal law test, which comes from Kant's categorical imperative. You know that one.
Oh yeah, where you imagine what would happen if everyone did what you're thinking of doing.
Exactly. It helps you think about the bigger consequences of your actions. So before you do something, ask yourself, what if everyone did this? Would the world be better or worse?
So if I'm thinking of cheating on my taxes, I should ask, what if everyone cheated on their taxes?
Exactly. It would probably mean no public services and lots of chaos.
Not a good recipe for society.
Right. By thinking about what would happen if everyone acted like us, we can make choices that match our values and help make a better world.
Taking a step back and thinking about the ripple effects of our actions.
Exactly. And that's what ethical living is all about. We're all connected, so our decisions should benefit everyone, not just ourselves.
We've got some great tools now. Questioning assumptions, practicing empathy, the universal law test.
Yeah.
But life can be unpredictable. Sometimes we're in situations where it's really hard to know what's the right thing to do, even with all these tools.
Yeah, it's true. There will always be tough choices that leave us feeling uncertain.
What do we do then when we face those tough ethical choices and need some guidance?
That's where a framework for making ethical decisions can help. And remember at the beginning when I talked about having a tool to help you with those late-night dilemmas?
Yeah, the secret weapon.
Hang on, Terry. Before we reveal that framework, remember everything we've talked about is in the source material, which you can find on our Patreon.
That's right. For a small monthly amount, you can get transcripts, show notes, bonus content, and you can even ask us questions directly.
We love hearing from our Patreon supporters, and it's thanks to them that we can keep this show going.
So if you like this deep dive and want to support us, head over to patreon.com/deep dive. We'd love to have you.
Now, back to that framework.
It's time for the 4-question framework.
No more stressing at 3 a.m. about whether you did the right thing. This framework will give you peace of mind and a clear conscience.
Okay, break it down for us. Question 1. What's the situation?
It sounds simple, but it's important to clearly define the problem. Don't get lost in your emotions, just state the facts.
So being clear about the specifics.
Exactly. Let's say you're trying to decide whether to tell your friend that their new haircut isn't so great.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It is. So first, you define the situation. You could say, my friend values honesty, but I don't want to hurt their feelings. Do I choose honesty or kindness?
I see. You've laid out the dilemma and the values that are clashing.
Exactly. Now, question 2. Which ethical approaches might apply? This is where we use those big philosophical frameworks we talked about. Are we thinking about consequences, principles, universal laws, or maybe virtue ethics?
In the haircut situation, I might think about what will happen if I tell the truth. Will it hurt our friendship? Will it lead to more honesty later on? Or maybe I'll think about the idea that I should always be truthful.
You got it. Now, question 3. What are the possible outcomes of each approach? Time to put on our prediction hats.
Okay, so if I'm honest about the haircut, my friend might be upset at first, but appreciate it later. Or they might be really offended, and we could stop being friends. If I don't say anything, I avoid a fight, but I might feel like I'm not being true to myself.
Exactly. You're thinking through the different possibilities.
So we've defined the situation, thought about the ethical approaches, and weighed the possible outcomes. What's the last question?
The most important one. What feels right based on your values? This is where you listen to your gut and make a choice that shows who you are and what you believe in.
This is where it gets personal. Choosing what feels right, even if it's hard.
Exactly. You take all the information you've gathered, think about the ethical frameworks, the possible outcomes, and then make a decision that fits with your values.
Like that moment in a movie where the hero has to make the tough choice that shows who they really are.
And remember, there isn't always a perfect answer. Sometimes the best we can do is make the most ethical choice we can, knowing that we might not have all the facts or be able to predict everything that will happen.
That's a good point. Sometimes we try so hard to find the right answer that we forget that ethics isn't always black and white.
Exactly. That's why this framework can be so helpful. It gives us a way to deal with those messy situations and make choices that we can feel good about.
So to sum up, the 4-question framework is: define the situation, consider the ethical approaches, weigh the possible outcomes, and make a decision based on your values.
It's a powerful tool for those tough moral dilemmas.
You know, it's funny, we've been talking about using this framework for big decisions, but I think it can also help with those smaller, everyday dilemmas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, should you tell a little white lie to protect someone's feelings? How do you split a tiny piece of cake fairly?
Or even just deciding to hit snooze or go for that run you promised yourself.
It's about using those same ethical ideas in all parts of our lives.
Like working out those ethical muscles so we're ready for the big challenges.
Exactly. The more we practice thinking this way, the easier it gets.
Wow, we've covered a lot of deep philosophical stuff today. But remember, philosophy isn't about memorizing theories or showing off. It's about using these ideas to make your life better.
It's about asking questions, challenging what you think you know, and trying to be more aware and compassionate.
And sometimes it's about admitting that we don't have all the answers, and that's okay.
It's about accepting that there are gray areas and uncertainty.
I think that's a good place to start for today. But before we go, we want to leave you with something to think about.
We've talked about making ethical decisions, but what about when we see someone else doing something unethical? What do we do?
That's a great question. Do we say something, even if it might cause a problem? Do we stay quiet and hope someone else does something? Is there another way?
We want to know what you think. Leave a comment and let us know. We might even talk about some of your responses in a future episode.
And if you want to learn more about this or any of the other topics we covered today, check out the source material on our Patreon page.
You'll find the link in the show notes, along with other ways to connect with us.
And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any new episodes.
We appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Until then, stay curious, keep questioning, and keep working those ethical muscles. It's almost like they reach a crossroads and have to decide which path to take, the one that really shows their character.
And sometimes there isn't one perfect answer, you know? Sometimes we just do the best we can with what we know, even if we can't be sure of all the consequences.
That's so true. I think we get stuck trying to find the right answer sometimes and forget that ethics isn't always that simple.
Exactly, and that's why I think this framework is so useful. It helps us approach those difficult situations in a way that lets us make decisions we can feel good about, even when they're hard.
Okay, so the 4-question framework is: define the situation, think about the different ethical approaches, weigh the possible outcomes, and then make a decision that aligns with your values.
It's like your toolkit for those tough moral dilemmas.
It's interesting, we've been talking about it for big decisions, but I bet it's useful for smaller everyday dilemmas too, right?
Absolutely. Think about those little things, like whether to tell a white lie to spare someone's feelings, or how to fairly divide up a piece of cake that's too small.
Or even like, should I hit snooze or go for that run I said I would?
It's all about using those ethical reasoning skills in every part of our lives.
Building up those ethical muscles.
Exactly. The more we practice it, the more natural it becomes.
So we've gone through some deep philosophy stuff today. But remember, philosophy isn't about memorizing facts or trying to sound smart. It's about using these ideas to live a better life.
It's about asking questions, challenging what you believe, and trying to be more aware and kind.
And sometimes it's about saying, I don't know all the answers, and being okay with that.
It's about being okay with not knowing everything.
I think this is a good place to wrap up for today. But before we go, we want to leave you with something to think about.
We've talked about making ethical decisions for ourselves. What about when we see someone else doing something unethical? What's our responsibility?
That's a tough one. Should we say something, even if it'll cause a problem? Should we just be quiet and hope someone else steps in? Or is there another way?
Let us know what you think. Leave a comment below, and we might talk about some of your ideas in a future episode.
And if you want more on this or any other topic we talked about, you can find the source material on our Patreon page.
The link is in the show notes, along with other ways to connect with us.
And please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss new episodes.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Until then, keep being curious, keep asking questions, and keep those ethical muscles working. And remember, the best way to learn philosophy is to actually go out and do it, engage with the world, ask tough questions, and be willing to rethink what you believe.
And have fun. Philosophy doesn't have to be boring or scary. It's about enjoying the journey of learning and exploring what our minds can do.
That's all for this episode of The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time for another exciting exploration of ideas.
Thanks for being here.
This is really just the beginning. Philosophy is a journey, you know.
Always more to learn, more to question, and more to discover about ourselves and the world.
So keep thinking, and don't be afraid to really explore those deep philosophical ideas. You never know what you'll find.
Maybe you'll even come up with your own way of navigating through life's ups and downs.
And before we go, we want to thank all of our amazing listeners. You're the reason we're here.
We love hearing from you, so please keep those comments and questions coming. And don't forget those topic suggestions.
Find us on social media, and of course, we're always over on Patreon.
And, if you're liking the show and want to support us, you can become a Patreon supporter for, the price of a cup of coffee each month.
Every little bit helps us keep making these deep dives.
So until next time, stay curious, keep questioning, and keep those philosophical conversations going.
And remember, the best way to learn philosophy is to do it. Go out there, engage with the world, ask those tough questions, and don't be afraid to challenge what you believe.
And most importantly, have fun with it. Philosophy doesn't have to be boring or intimidating. It's about enjoying the journey of learning and seeing what the human mind can do.
That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for being a listener. Click the card above to explore our playlist and find more episodes. And hey, if you really appreciate our work and want to help us keep creating awesome content, you can find us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/McAllister. Or if you just want to buy us a coffee, head over to buymecoffee.com/Jamie McAllister. All content, copyright Jamie McAllister.